We've been a team that has won a lot of games, but we haven't won the critical ones.
The two winningest teams in AFLW history, one's got 2 cups, the other nothing but years of frustration. It's the 2022 AFLW Grand Final.
Having played already in 2 grand finals and losing them, yeah, it was kind of in my mind that like third time lucky or that sort of cliches, whatever. But there's no promises in sport.
The Adelaide Crows are champions of the AFLW for the 3rd time.
I remember sitting in that locker room at the end of that day thinking, I don't want this feeling ever again.
I remember just finishing that game and thinking, was that it? Like, is that my only chance to have a go at a grand final, and will we ever get back here? It took us a while to heal from that one.
It has been years in the making, but this weekend, these 8 captains will lead their teams out to battle for the very first time.
Yeah, I think right from the start we had sort of a core majority of our list that were fierce competitors, and they weren't there just for a good time. They wanted to win.
The culture was one of like, let's get to work and let's try and win. That was definitely my mindset from the very beginning.
The journey's been filled with highs and lows. I think the lows have probably been the way that our earlier 6 seasons had finished. There was just all these almost moments.
You know, we narrowly missed out on making a grand final with our loss to the Western Bulldogs. 2020, we made a semi-final. We'd just come off a massive win with Lily Mithen kicking a goal against the Giants in that last minute of the game.
Unbelievable!
And then a whole season shut down because of COVID. 2021, we lost to Adelaide in the prelim.
They were sort of the moments where we thought, are we ever going to be good enough? Are we ever actually going to get to the end of the season and hold up a cup?
When you get so close so many times, it does sort of get to a point where you're like, is this going to shift for me, or have we missed this opportunity?
The NAB 2022 AFLW Women's Grand Final.
I really thought going into that game, we had a chance to win.
The season 6 grand final, I was so adamant we were going to win. And then the warm-up started and these things were happening.
Shelley Scott might have done her calf in the warm-up. Even once we started playing the game, it just felt like every inside 50, it was just coming straight back at us. And I remember trying to say, like, we're only out of this by 3 goals. Like, this is still doable. But the feel amongst the group was that they were just a much better team on that day.
Well, it's going to be a hard one to watch back.
I guess the biggest takeaway for me and for us as a team was just that we needed to find a way to be able to be bold and brave and perform on a big stage.
We got beaten by a better team. We were desperately trying to compete and perform and do our roles individually, but we really lacked that cohesion and connection. It was, I guess, stripping it back and then be like, okay, well, how do we work towards being that team that can have that chemistry and connection with each other and not fear the pressure or have that pressure disconnect us, but actually embrace it.
I think we carried with us into that season 7 the rawness of that loss in Adelaide, and that really drove the players on.
They were disappointed, but they reset themselves to go, right, what we've learned out of that game is going to make us better, and they were so determined.
Even though it was an expansion season, none of our players left.
We were straight back at it a couple months later, and we were working hard in pre-season, not just physically, but mentally and probably emotionally as well. Like, we really worked on that connection as a group.
You know, we would have always called ourselves a connected group. I mean, you won't find many footy teams that don't call themselves that these days. But I think our evolution was a conscious effort to try and make it translate on field.
The biggest thing that we trained was our demon spirit, and I know it sounds wishy-washy and, you know, a lot of people probably don't really understand it, but it was something that just connected us.
We use the term demon spirit to capture our capacity to do the little things really well consistently. So within a game, for example, it's your capacity just to run an extra 5 or 10 metres because your team needs you to. Or if a teammate's on the ground, like, pick them up, create that connection in that moment.
Mick, I don't know where he gets some of his ideas from, but they're generally brilliant. I remember him saying, I'm thinking about getting an improvisation teacher to come and take a few sessions with us. And I was like, what? What is that? And he went on to explain, like, basically an actress. I was like, okay, and what do you hope to get out of that?
They're like keeping it in what this
Yeah, our improv lessons were so much fun. I think they brought a real edge and difference to our program.
You might be thinking, what's all that about? But it is literally a drama class. One, it's hilarious. Like, we're all sitting in the room doing drama class effectively. And we're like, we're at footy training. Like, what is this sort of world? This is our job, and here we are.
Mick's whole idea was that we're a team that has the capability. We just need to learn how to be bolder and braver and not fear failing.
The game is riddled with mistakes, so if you get stuck on failure, you're in for a really rough time. There's so many connections between the two fields. It was, being able to perform under pressure, embracing failure, being comfortable making mistakes, supporting the person next to you. And our group just really connected with that and invested in it and ran with it.
Melbourne find a way to beat their nemesis. It's far from redemption, but it's a great first step.
For us, season 7 was a really interesting one, the way it unfolded. For the first 5 games or so, we were winning and playing well, but we didn't quite have that belief to really stamp our authority, I guess.
We kept getting the 4 points, but we were kind of just going through the motions, and it was just sort of like, it's not that fun at the moment.
We went to Fremantle, and that was a big turning point in the season. We won, but we played in a way that was kind of not us and a bit dissatisfying.
The change rooms after the win were, it was a little bit of relief that we'd won, not a lot of joy, and it wasn't the normal response you'd get from, a tough, gritty win on the road. So that was probably a sign that we're not heading down a great path here.
We were all just waiting, wanting to get to the end where you could go one better, working hard and doing everything right, but in your soul, you're not in the moment.
Internally, we want to be a great team. We desperately wanted to win a premiership, but if no one enjoyed it, what's the point?
After round 6, we had a meeting, and it was just really honest, and we were like, are we really where we want to be? We were quite obsessed with that desire to be perfect and to be, dominant and all these sorts of words that weren't realistic.
We were just like, well, what is fun? What's fun about footy? And that was bringing demon spirit to every moment possible. And when we really focused and trained that's when the enjoyment came, and that's when everything just sort of clicked.
It's a 78-point win.
Siren sounds. They're through to a prelim final.
Gets good traction on the football, and Melbourne are into another grand final. Now only the Brisbane Lions stand between the D's and the ultimate prize. It's destination Springfield for the Lions, who are through to a 4th AFLW grand final.
All of our games against Brisbane have been hard, and then particularly last season, how powerful their best footy had been. The W Awards were on our training night, and they swept the night. It's like, we'll go and play the top team who's kicked the most goals. They've got the leading goal kicker, they've got the best and fairest, they've got all these All-Australians. Their coach is the coach of the year. They were unveiling their brand new facility, and then there's us. And it just became let's not pretend it's not a factor. Let's harness it, almost like a bit of an underdog spirit. And then ran out in front of 8,000 Brisbane fans and about 200 of ours.
Welcome to the 2022 NAB AFLW Grand Final for Season 7.
We're just going to bring unconditional demon spirit and just go whack, okay, for 70 minutes, again, until they tell us to stop. Yeah. All right, this is our time. Don't stop believing we got this, all right? Let's go.
And there's an improv game that we've learned, and it's playing paper, scissors, rock, and then you kind of all celebrate. And we played that game after we'd sung the anthem and before we went out. That was a very final thing that we did. And it looks like we just won the grand final, but really we've just done this paper, scissors, rock warm-up game just to induce a bit of energy within us. It was all just about enjoying the moment, playing with that freedom and trust and connection.
Two great clubs, Brisbane looking for their second cup, Melbourne their first. 4 quarters away from a piece of football immortality, and away we go at Springfield.
Brisbane have a lot of weapons, and all over the field too, really.
Everyone was sort of siding with Brisbane. It was the number 1 defensive team being us against the number 1 attacking team.
Brisbane have this really fast offence, and I think that's what makes them so good.
They play with great speed, great aggression, so a lot of their strengths were our strengths too.
You know, that first quarter, I think within 10 minutes we were 2 goals down, which in shortened, low-scoring AFLW games is a fairly significant margin.
And Brisbane flexing their muscles early. They've got 2 on the board.
We got this passage of play. I was late. There may be only a minute left, I reckon. And Meg Fitzsimons running into an open goal, and Nat Grider tackled her, holding the ball.
Fitzsimons has got to be quick. Brilliant run-down tackle. A goal saver.
Wow. Brilliant chase down, like that kind of stuff you can appreciate when someone does an excellent on-field action.
It was a good tackle, but it was a little bit defeating for a second, and I just thought, oh no, like, is this not our day? Like, that would have been a goal for us.
A couple of minutes later, she smothered the ball. It went out of bounds, and then the quarter time siren went. And if you watch the vision, pretty much our whole team gets over to Fitzy, and you can just see how connected we are as a group.
A smother's not a stat. It's not something that people are going to praise you for, but I think that moment sort of shows that okay to fail and how can I get back in and do the best for my team.
It would have been nothing to anyone else, but I was like, oh, we're on here.
Go down to the break and you're like, this is bizarre. Like, you know, you sort of go in thinking they need some reinforcement from the coaching group because we're 2 goals down in a grand final and things didn't go our way. But they were like, no, we've got this.
Some really good fight to the death, but then we just need to think our way through it, all right? Away we go, bring that energy.
The best AFLW players in the whole country come together on grand final day. Only 4 goals are kicked, and one of them is by an Irish woman.
Bannon and Conan. Conan went to ground. Bannon kept her feet. Got it to Mackin, who's going to kick the first goal for the Demons.
Come on, Demons!
The Irish woman. Melbourne needed that, some reward for effort.
Even that passage of play was a sum of all our parts, everyone playing their role, created that first scoring opportunity.
In the third quarter was when we first hit the front. Tay had been incredible. I think by this point she'd like cut her eye and just started throwing her body around. She just, again, got this kind of look in her eye that she was going to do everything that she could to help us get over the line.
Herself, can she get the hands free from Monahan? She does. Hall finds her boot. Can she find a goal? She finds Harris on the line.
Taylor's quite reserved and humble in how she goes about footy, so she doesn't normally celebrate.
And Melbourne lead the grand final.
If you ever see Tay kick a goal, she won't celebrate. But with that one, the passion and excitement and energy in her celebration, it was just like every goal that she'd kick for our club, like all of the celebration came out of her in that moment.
Like I did the whole double arm situation and I ran at some speed towards Lampy and she's like, the fear in her eyes when I was running at her, like ready to celebrate, and I just like shove her accidentally. And then I march all the way to the centre second. I'm so early for the centre bounce. And I'm like, that was awkward. Like I've just done the most awkward celebrating ever, but it was my first time.
It was great, and it just really spurred on our team because we could see that passion and the emotion from Tay, which she hadn't shown before.
Maybe I'll change my tune this season and celebrate a little bit more. Let's see. If it adds, then I'll try.
Kate's role is really important to our team. She's been a really dynamic forward, but in big moments she can go back and help us in the back line as well.
Got the message to go behind the ball, and that's kind of when we wanted to kill the game. We're obviously a few points up. There wasn't long to go.
I was on the bench and there was a few moments where Brisbane really rushed forward and I thought, this is it, like they're about to score and it's going to end the game for us. I think in those moments in the previous years we've probably felt quite nervous and uneasy, but when I came on I was like, nah, I just have to execute for 3 minutes. I don't think I've ever wanted to win so bad.
There was 30 seconds to go. We'd kicked a point and they rip it down the middle of the ground.
Stolen by Porter, the Demons. Kicks it to the wing and a great mark taken by Hanks. Desperately getting everything out of her tired legs to get to the drop and take the grab.
Hanksy, when she marked the footy and did her little tumble at pure exhaustion and still able to execute. And I was just slowly like, perfect, I'll take this tape off so I don't look like Voldemort for the celebrations.
That was a real moment where I was like, oh, I think I'm going to get a medal today.
The Demons get their premiership. Finally, they win it. And Daisy Pearce's legacy is set in stone.
Oh my God, it was just the best feeling in the world when that siren went.
Just so much emotion, just years of hard work and years of sort of coming up short and years of desperately wanting to get there, but the key was to stop trying so hard. And yeah, the premiership ended up being the byproduct of our genuine connection and enjoyment with each other.
We did it. That was kind of what everyone kept saying, and that kind of was the thing that kept falling out of my mouth.
You wouldn't have felt whole as a coach letting Daisy go through her career and not being able to help her win a premiership. Yeah, she's a pretty special person that just gives of herself and does nothing more than lift others and help them perform. So for us as a team to be able to create that moment for her and create that moment in history that we'll all forever be a part of, and now she's known as a premiership captain and one of the greatest players of all time, yeah, that sits a lot better with me.
The week leading into grand final week, all I could think about was Mick and Daisy holding up the cup.
Even in moments in the game, like, all I kept coming back to was, we got to do this for Daisy and Mick.
It's something that both of them deserved. You know, I think they'd worked so hard. They've built our program since day one. They've been advocates for Melbourne, for women's sport, and for them to hold up that cup and achieve ultimate success, I'm so glad that we got it for them.
Winning that premiership is so special to us because of all the near misses we had before that. And if we hadn't have had all those seasons prior to it, then maybe the one we just had wouldn't have been as rewarding.
To get that first premiership for this club was definitely something that was driving me, and to now be etched, I guess, in history is pretty special.
One of my favourite moments was just seeing all of our non-playing players come running onto the ground.
There's no team photo of us other than with everybody in it. Like, all the players, the non-playing players, for us, like, they were as much of a contribution to the grand final win as the next person. So I love that our team photo is everyone, even with the polo and their jersey over the top. Like, that's just the best.
I remember Sylvie saying to me in the lead up to the game, "Oh, I hope you're not the team sitting on the ground disappointed at the end." And I was like, oh goodness, like, it's just such a hard-hitting reminder of that they're watching everything you do. In that game, where sort of things turned around and we focused so much more on Demon Spirit, in Mick's pre-game that day, he'd actually said, like, the cup, like, those were his words, like, don't worry about the cup, that's not what we're here for. We're here for right now and for each other and the things you get out of it day to day. That feeling of, like, you're going to have to be okay even if you don't win it was something that I'd actually come to peace with. But then when you win it, I'm certainly glad you have. And I think what it does is it gives you something physical and something that no one can take away to ratify all those feelings you had about the connections you had as a team and the strength of those bonds. Like, you know you've got them, but when you win a premiership, it feels like it's true. This is the proof. They were stronger than anything.